Welcome to the Shortwave radio channel, and as we continue the 10 best shortwave receivers, as I mention in every video, and I wish people would listen more, it is, of course, 10 different videos, each containing one radio for my top 10 in a playlist. So, the Tecsun H-501X, definitely in my top 10, one of the radios I use the most. It is a big radio. It's a bigger radio than the average radio. It has two speakers instead of one. Has a tremendous sound. Actually, they've worked hard on making the sound quality of the radio amazing, and it is truly amazing. It's a long wave, medium wave, and FM and shortwave receiver general coverage. Has great sensitivity all around. It is a radio that has calibration and single sideband, and has single sideband. Of course, when you turn it on, you can actually tune it to single sideband, which will, of course, add the digits for more precision in the display. So instead of tuning with a BFO, you tune with the tuning knob and fine tuning, which is actually always makes it easier to tune around single sideband signals. Same feature on the Tecsun PL330, by the way, which is much less expensive, and calibration also. You got to remind everybody about that. You don't necessarily need the big gun Tecsun H-501X. You got a Tecsun PL330, you might be happy. Of course, it doesn't mute while tuning, and this is great. Like the Tecsun PL990, 880 also, PL680. These do not mute when you tune around. The least expensive radio that does not mute when you tune around pretty much is the Tecsun PL680. And of course, then you go up in other radios like the Tecsun PL990, the St. G and ATS 909X2, H501X here, the Tecsun PL880 that do not mute when tuning. It's a radio that has a lot of features, very nice built quality, metal knobs. Of course, MP3 playback, unfortunately no recording. Has a very long telescopic, and of course a very nice metal stand to keep it up. It has the inputs here on the side for AM and an FM outboard antenna, and that we don't see a lot. So if you like FMDXing and you might want to try it with an external FM antenna, it has the jacks for both AM and FM, or shortwave and FM antenna. Of course, it has a charging port because this radio is very unique. It uses two 18650 batteries, but it doesn't actually use them all the time. It's one at a time. So you got a switch on the back, and you choose which one you're actually using, and when the radio's battery's dead, you can actually just switch to the other battery, and gives you even more extended time. Nice display. Unfortunately, no RDS, and yes, Tecsun needs to learn about this. That it might be fun to add RDS to the radios. Lots of memory channels, of course, as DX normal local switch here, depending on what you're listening to, or if it overloads in any way, you can, of course, do that. Stereo FM through the two speakers. This is a very unique feature. We don't see that on radios because most radios have one speaker only. Although this radio does have the DSP chip that makes for several bandwidths, of course, as you see here. You can choose between several bandwidths. That is the DSP chip kicking in, but it is not DSP based. It's just one of the stages using the chip for its features. The radio is technically a PLL synthesized receiver. That's why it doesn't mute, actually. They called it an audio player also. It is Bluetooth driven also. You can pair your phone. I've done it actually several times, pairing my phone to listen to music on this. And when the radio's just in front of you, I mean, it sounds great. The stereo is really out there, really nice. Has line in and line out jacks, earphone jack on the front, of course, stereo through the earphones, of course. The mode switch here is to switch between the Bluetooth, the MP3 player inside, or the radio itself. And it is a great receiver, honestly. This is one of the top notch. This is the flagship Tecsun receiver. What negative do I have about it? The AJC is a little punchy. So on very strong single sideband, it doesn't show the when you listen to like weaker single sideband, it's okay. But if you have a really strong single sideband signal, it does punch through on the first words. So that could be a little irritating at the time. The other negative I will have is that above roughly 26, 27 megahertz, it has a little of fluttery on the single sideband, as if the oscillator has a hard time keeping its stability. So if you're a big fan of listening to 10 meter band, you might not want to choose this radio for that reason. But it doesn't do it everywhere. But when you're technically about below 25 megahertz, it stops doing it, and the rest of the band listening to 40 meter ham band or whatever, single sideband is great. I'm not sure exactly, because I've noticed one thing. For example, if my smartphone is too close, it will tend to flutter on other frequencies, which kind of tells me, is it my environment? Is it because there's a lot of strong signals here that the oscillator kind of kicks in this weird state? And that if you, because I've had a few people say they don't see that on their own Tecsun receiver. So I'm wondering if maybe you live in a quiet environment, maybe that oscillator doesn't act in the same way. So I'm not sure. I'm wondering, is it the oscillator itself, or is it the environment? If you live near strong signals, it might kick in and do that. One little flaw that could be important depending on what you're listening to. But overall, I love this radio. It's an amazing receiver and really one of the top receivers out there. Question that I get all the time is, well, I get stuff on this radio that I won't get on my Tecsun PL330. No, the answer is simple, no. The Tecsun PL330 is great. I get all the time people have the impression that there are radios that are more sensitive than others. At the price range and the radios I'm showing, they're all very close. So close that there's not really one radio that will have an advantage over another. Especially if you put, a little wire antenna on it or something. So don't go purchasing a radio thinking, I'm going to get this big gun radio, I'm going to get more than the Tecsun PL330. No, you're not going to be happy if you think like that, because that's not going to happen. Where this radio goes in the price range is extra features. The beautiful sound, the stereo FM with the 2 speakers, and FM antenna jack that you don't see on any other radio pretty much. Stuff like that you won't see on most radios. So the money goes into other aspects of the receiver itself, a triple conversion design and so on. It doesn't mute, it's PLL synthesized, stuff like that. But if you have a Tecsun PL880, 990, there's no reason to purchase this, except I want a new radio or another radio to add to my collection. That's it. If that was the case, for example, if I have the 990X, if I only didn't have a lot of money and that's the only radio I had, I would not see necessarily the advantage of moving on to the H-501X, because the 990X is great and it does it well. So it's all depending on what you want, and it's not in the I'm going to get more signals. But you get extras, the calibration, the stuff. But then again, you get calibration on the Tecsun PL330. The only thing that separates that radio in sensitivity performance, the PL330, and this radio, is the audio quality you'll get, stereo, and the fact that you'll have the FM antenna jack, things like that, and the not muting when you tune around. But in terms of getting signals, you're going to get the same signals at the PL330. So, the money is not necessarily needs to be spent to get good performance. So Tecsun H-501X, definitely one of my top 10 receivers for the summer 2022. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.